Hi guys, today we're going to be looking at the multimodality of a section of 5th Street in Atlanta, Georgia from William Street all the way to Fowler Street. Along this segment, there are sidewalks along both sides of the road and a cycle track along the south side behind me here. The widths of the road and sidewalk vary along the segment of the roadway we're studying.
This strip is also bounded by 2 intersections and has 1 intersection in between, and all the intersections contain pedestrian and bicycle signals. We chose the street because it accounts for multiple modes of transportation, including biking, walking, scootering, and driving and taking the bus. And all of these modes work together simultaneously to benefit the traveler.
This route has a central connection to campus from central Midtown. It provides an avenue for students, staff, and faculty to access food, off-campus apartments, and more. The strip is within 0.1 miles of Spring Street, which is a minor arterial road that provides access to the highway.
The AAGT in 2024 for Spring Street was 11,300 vehicles, and Spring and William Street in Midtown provide access to I-85, which has an AAGT of 405,000. We view our chosen segment as a vital connection between Midtown and the campus for a broad group of users, including students, workers, and cyclists.
The beginning of our survey ensures that users understand the study area and determines its frequency of use. We modeled questions in order to assess the quality of our study road segment, as well as user preferences for mode and the experience of the use of each mode. We centered our questions around 4 qualities: comfort, directness, reliability, and timeliness. We received 64 responses to our survey. Of these responses, 2 people indicated that they did not use a segment. 1 stated that they had no use for the route, while another stated that they might take the route more if there were more useful bus stops. The other 62 people indicated use of the route, most citing directness as the appeal to route use. Responders additionally indicated frequent use of the segment. Within this sample, the overwhelming majority uses walking as a primary mode of transportation. Comfort, directness, reliability, and timeliness have overall positive perceptions and responses. However, it should be noted that bikes and scooters reported the least comfortability and directness and the most reliability and timeliness. Drivers had exactly the opposite trends. It is also insightful to look at reasons for mode choice. Walking is highly associated with ease, while biking, scootering, and driving are associated more with timeliness.
Performance metrics will be used to assess the street segment at 5th Street, those being the level of traffic stress for pedestrians, bikes, and scooters, level of service for buses and cars, and travel times for the various modes. To get travel times, we all took 1 mode of transportation along the strip and recorded the time from end to end 3 times to get an average time of travel for each mode. For scooters and bikes, the travel times are shown here, and the average is 1 minute and 1.6 seconds. For walking, the times are shown here, and the average is 3 minutes and 43.33 seconds. As for driving, the average was 1 minute and 0.65 seconds. And last but not least, for bus, the average was 1 minute and 23.33 seconds.
Our next performance metrics were level of traffic stress and level of service. I'm going to go ahead and start with talking about the level of traffic stress, which was used for pedestrians and bicyclists. And to measure the level of traffic stress for bikes and peds, we used various different tables. Specifically for the bikes, we used LOTS table for conventional bike lanes, advisory bike lanes, and shoulders not adjacent to a parking lane, and the table we used can be seen right here. We'll go into depth with this a little bit later when we talk more about the results of bikes. And to measure the LOTS for pedestrians, we use the Traffic and Safety Analysis Procedures Manual to find the criteria to measure. This included 5 tables classifying the sidewalk, buffer type, buffer width, number of lanes, and land use. And those tables can be briefly seen here, but we'll also go into depth about those a little bit later in the video. The overall facility PLTS classification is then determined by selecting the worst rating given for any of the individual PLTS classifications. And moving on to the level of service, which we use for the vehicles, the cars, and the buses. We originally were planning on measuring those with level of traffic stress as well, but then we realized that there wasn't a way to do that, so we moved to kind of the adjacent for vehicles, which is level of service. To measure this value, we did some research on the capacity of this segment, which we found to be around 800 vehicles per hour, and then we estimated peak amount of vehicles in an hour to use as our volume, and then divided that to find the level of service. The first mode we're going to talk about is walking, which was our most picked option from our survey. And as we talked about before, we looked at a bunch of different tables, but I'm only going to talk about the one that got the lowest rating, which was the buffer classification. And we had 1 rating of PLTS2 because this strip right here had a buffer width of 4 feet instead of 5, which we measured on Google Earth. And we also found from the survey that people typically chose walking due to ease or limited other options and not as much because of comfort.
As for bikes and scooters, the speed limit was 25 miles an hour, the bike lane width was greater than 6 feet, and there was 1 through lane per direction, and this gives us a level of traffic stress of 1. Also, it was the lowest in comfort for any other group, and no users responded that they chose this mode due to comfort, and it had an average rating of 7.67 out of 10 for comfort. And it was the highest in perceived timeliness with an average score of 9.33 out of 10. Talking about directness, it also had the lowest rating, and that was 7.667.
Our study segment is a 2-lane road with 3 signalized intersections, each of which has left turn lanes. To evaluate the LOS of this segment, we estimated volume using the average of 2 sources versus a capacity of 800 vehicles per hour. To determine the design hour volume, we assumed a K-value of 8%. These calculations indicated an LOS of B. In our survey, driving was the most highly rated mode of transportation for comfort and directness. My experience reflected these qualities. Additionally, contrary to timeliness ratings, users indicated that driving was often chosen because of its timeliness.
The next mode we looked at for our 5th Street evaluation was the Stinger bus. The gold line and blue line run on this segment with around 6-minute headways with a stop just before reaching Techwood Drive. In order to determine the transit level of service, we used the following equations from the NCHRP report and tables. Here, the pedestrian level of service was assumed as B, even though it didn't affect the bus level of service at all. And the transit weight ride score is the headway factor times the perceived travel time factor. Here, the 6-minute headways give us a headway factor of 3.58 along this route, and the perceived travel time based on our BTTR of 6 for being in a major metropolitan area and an average travel rate of 12 minutes a mile along this route yielded a PTTR value of 0.76. Solving our original equation gave us a score of 2.218 for a transit level of service B. The results from our survey didn't include anyone who rode the bus as their primary mode, but as previously mentioned, there were respondents who cited a lack of convenient bus stops as their main reason why. In addition, the sample size was probably too small to capture the amount of bus riders along this busy segment. The major issues that we needed to tackle from our results included making biking and scootering more comfortable, improving buffers for pedestrians, and appealing to more users for transit. For bikes, the bridge has sections which are only vertically protected by plastic bollards. Additionally, the bridge does not feature a buffer for pedestrians. The green space and ample sidewalk room here can be cut into to produce a larger barrier which helps better protect pedestrians. We propose this barrier contain a curb or median featuring some landscape zone. Additionally, the right-of-way along the western part of the route should be extended in order to accommodate for another foot of buffer. At the northeast corner of 1st and Techwood, a buffer for pedestrians could be created by moving the bus stop 100 feet towards the bridge, adding shade and seating to make the stop more attractive. By making these improvements, we cater to the concerns indicated by our survey, a lack of transit use, and our LOS and LTS assessments. Considering cars are already the primary mode and have satisfactory performance results, we do not recommend any car infrastructure improvements at this time. Thank you for watching.